Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to the Marketplace. Coming up, President Akufo-Addo commissions first phase of Ghana's Petroleum Hub in the Western region.
I'm happy to stand before you at this groundbreaking ceremony for the Petroleum Hub project. A project that promises to be a cornerstone of our nation's development.
Also coming up, some businesses in the Ashanti region re-strategizing operations to recover losses incurred under the government's debt restructuring program.
The debt restructuring, getting capital to expand your business is a challenge. It was just recent that this COVID-19 challenges left us.
Plus, Bank of Ghana debunks assertion it demands several licenses from fintechs to provide remittance services. We hear from the head of fintech and innovation, Kwame Opong.
To the fintech sector. And let me be clear about something. I think often when we use a fintech term, we assume all of them are under Bank of Ghana. They are not. First of all, Bank of Ghana regulates banking and payments related activity.
My name is Darryl Kwao. Thanks for being with us. Details coming up. And first up, President Akufo-Addo has commissioned the first phase of Ghana's Petroleum Hub in the Western region. This marks a significant step towards ensuring that Ghanaian households and industries have reliable access to reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy. The project follows a $12 billion agreement signed in June between the Petroleum Hub Development Corporation and the TCP UIC Consortium. This initiative is part of the President's vision to position Ghana as a leader in petroleum refining, storage, and distribution across the sub-region and beyond. Here's more in this report.
The Petroleum Hub project is a private sector-driven investment with the Ghanaian government providing essential infrastructure including railways, roads, utilities, and regulatory incentives necessary for the hub's operation. The first phase of the integrated petroleum complex will feature a refinery with a capacity of 300,000 barrels per day, a state-of-the-art petrochemical plant with 90,000 BPD capacity, a 3 million storage tanks, a jetty with port infrastructure. At a groundbreaking ceremony, President Akufo-Addo highlighted the significant economic benefits the hub will bring to Ghana.
I'm happy to stand before you at this groundbreaking ceremony for the Petroleum Hub project. A project that promises to be a cornerstone of our nation's development. As we gather to commence the implementation of this project, we take a bold step towards ensuring that all Ghanaian homes and industries have access to reliable, affordable, and environmentally sustainable energy. This is the first phase of our three-phase hub, estimated to cost some $12 billion United States dollars. Upon conclusion, this project will complement, not compete, with existing refineries in Ghana and in the West African region, such as Tor, Centio, and Dangote. Led by the private sector, is designed to capture and sell the African Continental Free Trade Area market, which is valued currently at some 3.4 trillion United States dollars. We envisage a facility equipped with cutting-edge technology, prioritizing environmental sustainability with green buffers, supporting local fauna and flora. It will be a benchmark for crude and petroleum product pricing in Africa. This project promises to create some 780,000 direct and indirect jobs, help stabilize our currency, stimulate local economic development, and position Ghana as Africa's premier petroleum and petrochemical hub. This project is a bold solution to the challenges confronting the energy sector. To ensure we stay connected to the action, I propose that the headquarters of the Petroleum Hub Development Corporation be located in Jomoro. And that it should be renamed the Jomoro Petroleum Hub Development Corporation.
Minister of State at the Ministry of Energy, Herbert Krapper, praised the efforts of the past energy ministers and key stakeholders who have contributed to the development of the hub. He emphasized the importance of sustainable practices, ensuring that the energy needs of today are met without compromising the environment for future generations.
This petroleum hub, more than anything else, will take Ghana's energy sector to the next level. Mr. President, thank you very much. Thank you all very much too, everyone who has contributed to this remarkable milestone. I believe that working together, our vision of Ghana as a leading energy producer becomes reality, and we should not relent until it is done.
CEO of the Petroleum Hub Development Corporation, Charles Owusu, described the project as a potential game changer.
Vision to be a game changer in providing jobs, promoting technology.
Turning to other news now, Head of Fintech and Innovation at the Bank of Ghana, Kwame Opong, has debunked the assertion that the central bank issues about 5 licenses to fintechs in order to operate remittance services. Mr. Opong emphasized that only 1 license each is required to operate inward remittances in partnership with commercial banks. He spoke to Joy Business on the sidelines of the graphic business Standard Bank breakfast meeting in Accra.
Fintech sector. And let me be clear about something. I think often when we use a fintech term, we assume all of them are under Bank of Ghana. They are not. First of all, Bank of Ghana regulates banking and payments related activities. So if you are a technology company that is in the financial sector, on the banking sector, doing payments or anything, then you have to be there. You have to follow our guidelines. But if you're in other sectors, subsectors in the financial sector, insurance, securities, there's a regulator to whom you have to submit yourself. So Bank of Ghana has a framework that was developed back in fact, the framework begins in the early 2000s. It was evolved in the early 2000s, and in 2015, there was an update to cover mobile money. 2019, an update to cover the new PSPs, the payment service providers, and we'll continue to observe the market, as I mentioned, and evolve policy. But as we continue to do that, we have to be careful about 2 things. 1, technology is neutral. You can build any product in the technology world, and that's not a problem. But if you choose to apply technology in the financial sector, in medical sector, in healthcare, financial sector, perhaps in some cases even defense, some sectors are regulated for a reason. I think society came to that conclusion to protect consumers and achieve other objectives. And so when you're looking to apply there are some very basic principles that to ensure sector stability, we as a central bank, being a regulator of the sector, have to make sure that we observe and adhere to. Because if we don't, the enthusiasm around innovation may run far ahead of us at the detriment of vulnerable populations in our society, or perhaps occasion risks that might be problematic for us. So that's the reason why we try to make sure we're balancing the risks of innovation and our goal to promote innovation.
Now, some businesses in the Ashanti, Bono, and Afro regions are re-strategizing operations to recover losses incurred under the government's debt restructuring program. Many businesses across the country were affected by the program with the IMF, but the finance minister in June announced the end of a restructuring exercise and also released some funds to support businesses in the quest for economic recovery. The Association of Ghana Industries says various industries are recovering from both internal or recovering rather from both internal and external shocks despite delays in repayment of funds. Here's more in this report.
Many businesses continue to reel under Ghana's prevailing economic difficulties. Some risk collapsing. From financial institutions to small enterprises, a majority of businesses lost their investments, coupled with other financial burdens of inaccessibility to credit facilities to boost operations. Thomas Atibila is the chairman of the Association of Ghana Industries, Ashanti, Bono and Ahafo regions.
Since the debt restructuring, getting capital to expand your business is a challenge. It was just recent that this COVID-19 challenges left us and debt restructuring has followed. Now, if you want loan to expand, it's very expensive. It is given to you at the shortest possible term. As manufacturers, we always want long-term loans. That thing is almost not there for us in Ghana. The terms they'll give you before even granting the loan is another challenge. Now we have AFTA, where our neighbors are competing us in our own market. We can also go out there to compete. But if the environment is not conducive, you can't grow it well to even go beyond your border.
Mr. Atibila was speaking at the media launch of the Semba Africa Business Excellence Awards to be held in the Ashanti region. Established in 2016, the award recognizes and celebrates most outstanding businesses and entrepreneurs in Africa while promoting the culture of excellence, innovation and sustainable growth. Managing partner of Semba Graduate Institute, organizers of the awards, Stephen Fosu, explains the award celebrates businesses that demonstrate resilience, creativity and leadership, especially in the prevailing economic climate.
Started this project way back 2016. The reason behind this initiative was to identify businesses who are doing quite well but do not have the necessary exposure for people to know what they are doing to support the business ecosystem in Africa. That was the reason why we launched Semba Awards in 2016. So from 2016 to that, we've been able to do 5 times, and this year is the 6th edition. Yeah. So the whole idea is to create a platform to support businesses and other entrepreneurs so that they'll get the needed exposure for people to also know what they are doing to support Mother Ghana.
The event comes with opportunities for businesses to enhance their brand reputation, visibility and trust of stakeholders. It will also provide nominees and awardees the opportunity to access a network of industry leaders, potential investors and partners, and a free business training to facilitate growth and expansion. Spanning agriculture to hospitality, 28 awards are up for grabs for nominated businesses. For Joy News, my name is Emmanuel Bright Kweko.
And you're watching The Marketplace. Time for the exchange. Accounting and auditing firm KPMG is asking government to, as a matter of urgency, get proposed tax measures and legislations in previous budgets and economic statements approved and adopted to help with effective revenue mobilization. This follows government's inability to unlock the full impact of some tax legislations to accelerate the achievement of the desired tax revenue to gross domestic product ratio of 20% by 2027. Joining me in studio is Evans Osari, his partner, deal and advisory at KPMG. Thank you so much for joining us here on The Marketplace. I want to begin first off with what you make of our economy right now based on your analysis.
Thank you very much, Daryl, for the introduction and for the invitation. So I think the first half of this year has been quite an interesting year. The various economic indicators are showing signs that they are trending towards the direction that we expect them to trend. And so it looks like the economy is responding to some of the interventions that the government is implementing. Mm-hmm. So for instance, inflation, we know sometime in December 2022, we're 50-something%. Today, July is around 20.9%. So there has been quite a significant reduction in inflation rate. And then also we look at issues around the economic growth itself, real GDP growth. Okay, the first quarter of this year, we have recorded about 4.7% growth in real GDP compared to the previous quarter, which was a little bit around 3.1%. So it looks like comparing this half year to the previous half year, there has been quite some improvement, even though some risk exists, okay, like the currency, for instance, is experiencing a bit of a wobble.
Yeah, we'll talk about the currency in a
Yeah.
bit, but you're cautiously optimistic about this second half of the year. Why is that?
Yes, I think a number of factors, come to play. The first one is we have elections in December, okay, and you realize that, it is obvious that when elections are, going to happen, a lot of, expenditure goes into that, and then you see a bit of slippages here and there from government fiscal. So I think that is the risk if we are not very disciplined in the way we are managing the fiscal space. Secondly, of course, we are going to go into Christmas activities, and there will be a bit of pressure on the cedi when we are approaching this season. And so those are some of the inherent risks. That is why we think that we need to be a bit cautious when we are being optimistic about the economy. Yeah.
You're talking about the cedi a lot, so I want to ask you, because we've seen some maybe signs of recovery in recent days. What do you make of that? How do we sustain it, do you think? And you mentioned that, the Christmas festivities are coming, and that could also pose a problem.
Absolutely. So the cedi, I think before we reach the external, debt restructuring agreement with their creditors, I think it experienced a bit of a, some depreciation before then. But right after that, you realize there was some kind of relative stability. So we haven't seen that significant drop in the cedi. The next half of the year is critical. It is critical. Number one, we know that...
You're already in it.
Okay. Yes, of course. In this half year. So we know that the IMF will come for another review. I think the third review sometime in September, October. Should all the metrics appear positive, we expect some disbursement, of another 360 million or so to come through. And that should be able to shore up a bit of the reserve and shore up the currency, irrespective of the fact that the Christmas activities and elections may put a bit of pressure on the cedi.
Well, let's turn to a debt situation. You mentioned the IMF, because, recently there were also concerns about what happens after the IMF program regarding our debt situation and how we're going to manage it going forward. What's your analysis on that?
So I think if we're able to go through the IMF, measures that we have agreed to, we should be able to reach a sustainable debt level. I think we are still in the 70% debt to GDP, which the IMF itself described as not sustainable and in a risk of debt distress. So we believe that with the restructuring that has happened and being able to manage our fiscals going forward, we should come to relatively sustainable levels in the short to medium term. I think the critical question is the long term.
The long term?
Long term. How do we manage that? Okay. And remember that we've deferred quite a bit of the debt servicing to the period 2027, 2028. I think those are the questions that we need to be asking ourselves, that what do we need to do? People are talking about sinking fund. Okay, government trying to set aside some fund to be able to meet those obligations in the long term. I think that is one of the ways that we are proposing in our budget review for government.
Any other things you're proposing in that regard in the long term?
I think it all comes back to us living within our means. I think that's the bottom line. The fiscal discipline is critical. We need to be sure that we are spending what we can generate. As long as we are able to do that, I think we will create quite a very narrow fiscal space. Okay. And then secondly, I think we need to look at ways of raising debt that is sustainable. I think we've talked about smart borrowing and all that. I think there's a point where we need to get to reprofiling our debt so that it becomes a bit more sustainable to service. Today, if you look at our debt, external debt to domestic debt, external debt is around 60-something%. It's reversed. Some years ago, domestic debt was the largest, but because of the impact of cedi depreciation, okay, it's immediately the cedi slides, our external debt, moves up. And so we need to look at how we manage external debt position at the moment. Yeah.
I want to talk of the IMF program, its impact on our economy.
Right.
And how is that translating in the pockets of the Ghanaian individual? Because, it has to reflect, doesn't it have to?
Absolutely. People talk about money in the pocket, which, is a statement that we all, say, and then businesses talk about cash, okay? So I think once we are seeing certain indicators trending positively, for instance, inflation is trending downwards. In fact, the IMF review stated that inflation drop exceeded target. So it means that we are really targeting inflation as one of the key indicators to ensure that the cost of goods and services are within reasonable means, so that you and I can easily buy, things on the market, and therefore our disposable income becomes a bit more impactful in our pocket. So the rate at which prices of goods and services are reducing, or the rate at which they are increasing is reducing. So the rate, when it used to be 55%, is now 20.9%. End of period inflation, we are expecting 15%. Should that happen, then
that's the government's projection.
That is the end of
what
period.
say you? I mean, what are you? Is it achievable?
It's a bit of a challenge. Okay, looking at the other factors I mentioned, the fact that there will be a bit of pressure on the cedi in this half of the year, and then there would also be elections coming up, and there will be a bit of more cash injection into the economy. So it will challenge it. But I think if we look at how inflation is trending downwards, if the same rate applies for the rest of the months to the end of the year, we believe that 15% is not far from sight, if you ask our assessment. Yeah.
One of the critical things I also want us to talk about is debt restructuring, concluding deals with the Eurobond holders, and ensuring that we move on to the next level. How do you see that shaping up? I mean, government is still in talks and negotiations with some of our external creditors to, finalize the deal. Absolutely.
I think the media budget review gave some indications as to what government has been able to achieve, especially debt relief and some debt cancellation from our Eurobond holders. I think it helps government to free up some space to be able to redeploy resources to some critical sectors. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one, too, is that businesses also get that confidence that once government is meeting some of these IMF conditionalities, if I may call them, or performance criteria, targets, indicative targets, then it means that confidence is still building in the economy, and therefore businesses are able to predict what is going to happen. In the short to medium term, we believe that we'll be able to sail through. I think the question we still need to ask ourselves is, after the IMF deal is implemented, what happens? What happens? I want to shift focus, talk about taxes, because that was also a major part of your analysis of the media budget. Right. You're asking government to hasten the implementation or the rollout of the tax measures announced in the budget. I want you to talk about that. Also, the last couple of days, we've had talk about tax reforms from the various political parties. They are looking to scrap the betting tax, e-levy. Your thoughts on our tax administration and what we should be doing? Sure. So I think taxation is all about raising revenue, okay? And so to remove one tax handle means that you have to find a replacement to be able to plug that hole. So to just remove a tax handle, it's easier said than done. Okay, that's the first thing. Secondly, government passed a couple of tax measures in the previous budget that are yet to see its implementation. First one is the emissions levy. Okay, because GRA has to develop all the regulations to be able to make the implementation a bit more practicable. So that is yet to be finalized, which we think that once it is done, it will be another source of revenue to be able to improve government revenue. Then the second part of it is the Exemptions Act, which was also passed sometime in 2023, okay, which regulates exemptions on goods that are imported and all that. And we are trying to streamline that so that government doesn't lose a lot of revenue through exemptions. If that is also implemented, we believe that some savings could be made from that angle. And then we have talked about non-tax revenue, road tolls, for instance. We need to start looking at road tolls and how we can generate revenue from roads to be able to finance capital expenditure in the road sector. We have just about a minute, so I want to talk about agriculture, because there's serious concerns right now about food security. There's a drought in the northern part of the country. I see that you've got stuff from Planting for Food and Jobs initiative. What's the best way forward? What path should we chart in order to ensure that we are not in a food crisis and the agri sector is delivering on its contribution to the growth of the economy? Sure. One of the SDGs is zero hunger, which government is trying to achieve, and we have only about 6 years to 2030 to be able to achieve that. Okay, and it's critical that both private and public sector measures are put together. So government is doing its bit in the Planting for Food and Jobs, and then private sector needs to be empowered to be able to scale up production in some of the most basic staple commodities that we have here. Right. That is, I think, the way to go to be able to ensure sustainability and food security in this country. Thank you so much, Evans Cesare, partner, deal and advice with KPMG. I enjoyed our conversation. Hope to have you in studio sometime soon. And that's the marketplace, everyone. More news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. Thanks for watching. We will be back
Same time tomorrow.